Hey, once again, you're invited on September 11th to the 13th, 2025 to the SV Focus Lab. It's going to be incredible in Fayetteville, Arkansas, or online. We're going to be talking there about the ideas we're covering today on this episode, but it's going to be an advanced training into nuance, super practical, first ever SV Focus Lab. All right, today we're going to talk about pivoting, a key part of focus, a key part of any model, but especially if you're trying to take EFT into distress. Can't wait to talk about pivoting with you.
Welcome to the Leading Edge in Emotionally Focused Therapy with your hosts, Dr. James Hawkins and Dr. Ryan Rana. EFT is a dynamic model that humbles even the most seasoned therapists. Together, we want to come alongside you as you continually push the leading edge of your understanding and application of this wonderful model developed by Dr. Sue Johnson.
All right, y'all, this is a special treat. It reminds me of when we first began this podcast. All those years ago, a couple of EFT trainers and supervisors got into a room. We talked about the cycle we were seeing in society and how could we help offer voice and structure that provided hope and clarity and direction. Well, today, there's three of us in the room at least. We miss you, Charlie. Definitely hope to meet you again on the road. But today, we have our guest contributor in the office with us. That's right. The George that's another person. Sorry. The George Fowler of Foreplay Radio, the internationally known ICEEFT trainer, former firefighter. We got to big up you right now, George.
Oh, shoot.
Seriously, George, we thank you so much for all that you have meant to the EFT field, all that you've done, all you've meant to this podcast. Yep. Me and Ryan definitely love to give you shout outs. We're not trying to pretend like we're geniuses on our own. We recognize in the African proverb, we stand on the shoulders of great people before us, and George, you're one of those people.
Absolutely.
So thank you, man. Appreciate you.
Yep.
Thank you, my brothers. It's great to be back. It's always a blast to be home away from home and kind of chilling. This is our space to just challenge and be curious and just kind of brainstorm together, which is always, I think, we're all continuous learners here, and I know your listeners are, and we don't have all the answers. That's okay. Sometimes it's better to ask the questions than have the answers.
So speaking of not having the answers, today we're getting ready for the SV Focus Lab, as you heard Ryan advertise about so well. And George, you started talking to us about pivots.
Yep.
And we've talked about the necessity to be able to pivot. Particularly in the past, we've talked about noticing if your intervention landed.
Yep.
Great, and stay with it. If it didn't land, apologize, take ownership as a therapist, and make the pivot there. And we've talked a lot about pivoting with blocks and working with blocks. But today, we were in our planning meeting for the SV Focus Lab, and George, you stumped us. And we did not have all the answers. So could you introduce the topic of what you kind of been sitting in the front of your mind right here today?
Yeah, so we're trying to define a pivot as an attuned clinical decision, shift in a tactical focus, right, in the moment. And you're right. A lot of times we've been emphasizing, and I think it's been super important, to how do you do that with blocks? Blocks force you to have to pivot, right? You have an intervention, you're trying to get your client to go in a certain direction, and they're like, yeah, no, thank you, the timing isn't right. So you need to go somewhere else. And, that's super important. We keep doing that. But, as we're thinking about really every session is continuous pivots, right? You have people in states of closedness, defensiveness, or openness. So when they're in openness, if I'm working with you, James, and I got you honoring, understanding your defenses, and now I want to get you to go deeper, well, guess what? That's a pivot. That's a shift in my focus. I got to be able to understand what to do to get you to go to that goal towards success and vulnerability, right? So that's a new idea, trying to think about pivoting to deepen. Like, why does a therapist go in the moment if I'm watching a tape and they really got somebody in their pain and you can see tears in their eyes, and then all of a sudden the therapist is like, yeah, I can see that pain you've always wanted. You've had a longing for something different. And boom, just like that, the therapist introduces this new element, this longing that wasn't the pain that they were just sitting in that moment. And my brain's like, why? Why that intervention in that moment? That was a pivot. And we just don't often talk about that. It's informed by attunement, right? It's like something in that moment is feeling something and we do something with it, but we're not really making that intentional choice. And, that's what we're trying to talk about here today.
It's good stuff.
So one, I love that you even gave a definition of it. So I didn't catch it. You said it so cleanly, but it's like an attuned clinical decision about a change in your maybe tactical focus or strategy.
Yep, you're introducing a new.
Yep.
Direction a little bit.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's like the action tendency of attunement, right? So it's like my attunement is causing me to take an action. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And most of us do that not consciously.
Right.
Right, because that's the way we are trained. I watch so many of Sue's tapes and be like, "Oh, how'd you do that? That was amazing!" And it's just like she's flowing and dancing, But trying to, as we watch the tapes, I don't think we're trying to do this in session. We're trying to get the reps outside of session to say, "Hey, why do I do this at that moment?" And that for me, that feels different. I get excited. I'm like, I've never thought. I've been doing EFT for over 25 years. I don't really think about pivots in openness or deepening or going into real vulnerable emotions. How many moments we actually have to do that? We talk a lot about the window of tolerance, right? When you got people within their window where they can be stretched a little bit, right? And you stretch them a little bit too much and not enough, and you're constantly kind of shifting, but we're just doing this not so aware.
Whoa. So that brings me to, like, what is it about you now, George, that's got you so excited? Like, if our listeners were to, like, get this, how would it change their clinical practice?
I've been playing around with introducing more longings and needs early in the process. Why is that? Because, ultimately, negative cycles are unmet needs, right? When we can't get our needs met, we're going to have to protect ourselves, and how we protect ourselves creates feedback loops of additional protection, right? So those unmet needs are the engine that drives this whole thing. They're always there. Right? The more I can tap into them at the right time, the more I can get closer to those limbic revisions. So when I'm working with defenses, I know I'm working with defenses because the only reason they're defending themselves is there's a threat to their attachment system, right? That's the hurt, the fear, the vulnerability. And the solution to those hurts and fears are these needs for connection, for reassurance, for love, whatever the need is. Like, that need can be introduced. And when are we introducing it? Like, my brain's like, I usually introduce it in stage 2 once the pain is alive. But there are other points during the way. I watch other trainers have different timing with that. And I'm just trying to say, well, let's just think about the timing of when we're doing this and why, so we can be a little bit more explicit about the process.
I love that. That reminds me of a quote I learned in the South. A person who knows why will always have a job, but the person who knows how will have a job, but the person who knows why will be the boss.
Okay.
Wait. The person who knows how will always have a job.
Yeah.
But the person who knows why. Well, okay, I got
So
you.
what George is kind of saying is I think everybody's always pivoting. All of you are doing a great job pivoting.
You can't not pivot.
So many EFT trainers that I've gotten to watch and learn, like Rebecca Jorgensen, Leanne Campbell's, they're all pivoting. And they probably know why, but I guess for us right now, what we're talking about is we want to make sure, are we helping learners understand why that might be a moment to pivot, or even help them explore, why did you pivot?
I don't think I know why a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
You just make a read in the moment and you go for it.
Make a read. It happens so fast. You trust in your attunement, and it goes somewhere. If it doesn't, you go somewhere else. But really trying to break down the process. That's why we watch so many videotapes. We become more aware. We have more conscious choice. I think that makes us better therapists when we are more intentional.
That's good.
Yeah, just a little promo here for Success and Vulnerability. We are about to launch at some point, I'm not sure when, our basics module.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things that we're going to release is a training tape from Sue Johnson. That was my favorite of how I got into EFT, called Doug and Diane. And part of the reason it was such my favorite is a lot of what Sue was doing wasn't working. Simply because they were really struggling. And so you're just watching her pivot and pivot and pivot. They were forcing her to.
Yeah.
Which was so great for me training wise. So you just said I make a read and then pivot. What are you reading? What are you looking for?
And that's why I think it's so much easier with Sue, because it wasn't working. Blocks and misattunement are clearer. They're clearer signals to say, hey, you got to do something different. We're doing exactly the same thing when it's working. Except it's not as clear. So that's where I'm not sure what my read is. Like if I'm trying to get you, if I'm working with Ryan and I'm trying to get you into a primary emotion, that's my mission in that moment. And I start to get this sense of you feel like a failure right before you retreat. Like it's working. Like I got to do something else with that. You know, so when I say what my intervention is, evocative response, well, where do you feel that in your body right now when you say that? Or maybe I do a conjecture. I imagine in most areas of your life, you don't feel like a failure. And yet, like, there's a reason why I'm doing different interventions, right? They're all pivots. Every intervention's a pivot. You're introducing something new to get closer towards your target of success and vulnerability.
Yeah.
Right? So just try and understand, like when I'm watching my videotape, I'm like, pause the tape a second. Name your intervention. All right, you just reflected. All right, why do you think you reflected? What were you looking for? What was the intent of that reflection? Like that's just becoming a more aware therapist when we are more skilled with our tools.
So we just finished like a 4.5 hour think tank trying to develop ideas here, and so I was trying to say, I don't know if you agreed with me or not. I'm gonna let you know. But I kept saying, so part of what you're reading is tolerance window. So if you come to me and you get tears, I mean, your body is making an educated, attuned guess about whether I can go deeper in that moment, or whether I've gone deep enough and you need to do an enactment, or maybe I'm dysregulated and you need to sort of give me a summary or take me back to a trigger. Is that kind of around what you're referring to?
Yeah, I think the map informs, or the moves of the tango, the interventions, they inform where we're heading towards, like a cardinal direction, which is super important to have, right? But I'm still not sure. That's why I love discussions like this. Why, in that moment, if I have tears in your eyes, why sometimes I'm going to go to a longing in that. Sometimes I'm going to go to a little boy who's hurt. Sometimes I'm going to look at your partner and try to get their caregiving system. Like those are 3 different moves that could happen in that moment. And I'm not exactly sure why I do either of those 3.
Yeah. And in some ways, that's fine.
Yeah, of course.
If it works, it works. So what's the reason you're spending so much time to try to get that not so vague?
I think it's easier to pivot and have success when you know the intention of what you're looking for. And if you get it, you have a plan what you're going to do. Or if you don't get it, you have a plan of what to do. Like, I think we have more flexibility. When we really are not super conscious and we're just going into it and we're not even sure why we're doing what we're doing, it's a lot easier to get triggered, self for the therapist. And then, we all get humbled in this process, that's for sure. But I find myself, like now I'm focusing a little bit more on longings. So I'm going into my sessions looking in for openings, opportunities, where in the past I just wasn't even seeing that, right? So that is me pivoting with a little bit more awareness of an area I wasn't before.
Yeah, I guess as I'm thinking about this, because I'm sure our listeners are maybe trying to lock it in some more. And I was sitting here thinking stage 2 feels, I'm not going to say simple because that wouldn't be right. But I'm thinking in stage 2, I might be trying to just define, like, get into the fray. Like, where do their failed repair attempts keep failing? And I'm like, oh, they let me have that. Okay. I could set up enactment. No, I'm not going to do that right now. All right. And then how do you see yourself? Then I start working with distilling the negative view of self. Then I'm like, whoa, they're there. The partner's still there. Okay, fine. Then I'll go to maybe what's been the reluctance that's kept you from reaching for that need.
But let me just pause you that second, because we've been, I think, really clear in teaching that when they don't want to go there and you get a block, you do this.
Yep.
But when they will go there because you introduce something new, we haven't really talked about that. About your decision tree that led you to try that out and what you're going to do with it when it works.
Exactly.
That leads to these beautiful places.
And so now in somewhat stage 2, I think maybe some of that openness, but I'm sure as we keep talking about this, maybe I'll get challenged and pushed back. But stage 1, my brain really works a little bit harder to think. So I'm thinking about a live I've done recently, and I go in, the therapist told me they were stage 1, but as I'm with the withdrawer, they kept opening up. And I'm like, crap, okay. Like, you didn't block me yet. You didn't stop me. Then I'm looking at their partner, and I'm looking like, hey, is it okay with you if I know I said I'd stay here for 15 minutes, but can I have 10 more? And then they're like, yeah. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I'm out of this person's protection. I'm like, should I ask it now? And what do you say about yourself there? Then I'm like, wait, he's still staying. hold on. And I would have never registered as a pivot, but he did make me pivot.
Yeah.
Or I shouldn't say, but that was would you call that a pivot in openness?
That was a shift in your focus. You thought you were going to get honoring the defenses and then maybe go over to the other partner, and yet you got an opening to go deeper into view of self, and you took that's a pivot. Just like a block would force us to pivot, openness gives us an opportunity to pivot, to go to a new place, and that's exactly what you did. And I know in all of my years of trading, I've never really taught my participants on what to do in that moment.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's where maps can be a problem, right? Because they can shape our expectations of what's there, and who knows what's going to be there. You walk in an office, it could be everything from this stage 2 couples had a fight and they're very much stage 1, and vice versa. Sometimes stage 1 couples come in and they're so open, it's like, all right, let's go. And so it's pivot.
The idea of automaticity, that so many of us are operating without making decisions. And we don't want to lose that. I mean, it's efficient. It's much more effective. I think so much of the magic in session is just our spirit, our heart being present, being impacted, moving, dancing with people. I mean, that's the gift of what we all do, right? But the people who are successful become more intentional. They can break down the process when it's helpful. Just like the best basketball players. I remember both of you talking about Kobe Bryant and like how he would break down moment by moment, and he was like 20 steps ahead because he just kept focusing on the process. I think that's the spirit of what we're trying to encourage people to do here. Like, just when you even have openness, people are like, therapy is working. Try to get more curious about the sequencing of your interventions, why you do, what you're hoping for, what are you going to do when you get it. Like, openness is not, I've spent so much time focusing on blocks. I have not been focusing so much on what to do around layering openness.
I agree. When we were talking about this earlier, the story that came to my mind, I never professed to be a good basketball player. But there was one day I went to the gym, and for some reason, I was just hitting. I was in the flow. And all the other people there, they knew this was abnormal.
Right.
And one of them, he was frustrated. He's like, I'll lock it down. And for some reason, I just kept hitting. But I can't, now going back, I wish I would know, what did you do different, James?
Yeah.
What was your takeoff point? What was your release point? How were you holding your hand? Because then, here's why I'm excited for you leading into George, because I see so many EFT therapists, they do the hard work of working with blocks, of learning the map and learning the tango, and then the moment presents itself and it's open, and they don't know how to hit the shot.
Amen, brother. Amen.
And the reason, or it's like it becomes like a luck circumstance, like maybe today, versus it's like, no, if I follow my fundamentals, I have a higher percent. Like, I like how Chad says this. We're never trying to say, look, we're going to tell you 100% how to always do it. But it's if you know your moves and your strategies and your decision points, it empowers you more as a clinician versus just having to let the negative cycle dictate what you can and can't do. I don't know. That's what comes up for me.
What's been pushing me to do more of this is my focus on the sexual cycle, and seeing that once people get responded to in safer ways and some of their fears are kind of addressed, it really liberates energy to be redirected towards curiosity and growth and playfulness. And there's so much on the positive side of this equation that we need to emphasize a little bit more. I mean, it is unmet needs being met. It's secure. That's what leads to limbic revisions, right? When people experience love in places they've never been loved, not only do they feel safer, which is amazing, but it frees up all that energy that was focused on defenses to go elsewhere. And they need our help to help them put words to what that elsewhere is, right? If we don't know how to hang out in openness with real flexibility, then we're going to be looking for blocks.
Wow. And what a sad day to be looking for blocks when they're already open. Man.
Well, I have to go back because you can't set me up with a sports metaphor and not give me a chance to tell my story. So real quickly, I was a college baseball pitcher. And nobody's a baseball fan listening to this probably. There's one person who's ever watched a game. But if you ever watch a baseball game, the mechanics of a pitcher is extremely complicated. They do about 44 moves, not to mention what they do with the baseball, just their bodies, before they ever deliver. And it's a strange thing. When you're in the flow, it's a work of art. I remember those days. I'm a lefty, so I would just extend my right elbow. That's what I would think about. And I can put the ball wherever I want it with movement based on how I grip the ball. And it's a thing of beauty, right until it's not. Then you come out and you're not in the flow. And if you don't have an idea of what got you in the flow, it's a bad day. And that's what'll get you cut from a team in a hurry. And so then transitioning to coaching, I have a lot of kids come out and they're in the flow a lot, especially at lower levels. They don't want to study. They don't want to get proficient at like, hey, when I miss high, what's going wrong? They just want to try to find the flow. And that's what immature players do, right? But that mature player, that senior at the college level, that professional player has both. They know how to manage their flow, and then they know when they're having a bad day, how to adjust some things where they can find the flow again. I think it's a good metaphor for us because the percentage of couples, you don't need to worry about pivoting. They have enough longing online. They have enough access. There's enough openness. You can probably go in there with no plan.
That's the language that I find myself shifting, that they're actually pivoting a lot in openness.
Right.
We just got to get clearer on how we're doing that with them. Right? You could spend a whole session in positive affect because they're responding to each other. Like, they really need us to help them put words to how they're doing that. Right? And to do that, we have to pivot. We have to actually be doing things that maybe a lot of time we're not used to doing. So like that feels different to my brain. Every time I use the word pivot, my brain wants to think about a block. It wants to think about defenses. It doesn't think about doing it in openness. And I think that's what we're trying to play with here today. Like, pivoting has happened just as much in openness as it is in defensiveness, right? And yet we just don't think about it that much that way. At least I don't.
No, I don't either. Yeah,
that's tricky. Think again, going back to sports. If a player's doing the thing, you almost
want to get him in the head.
You almost want to shut up.
Yeah.
But what you should do is watch the film afterwards and say, "Here's why you were so successful today."
Yep.
And so that's part of what you're saying when you do with our couples.
It's not chance.
Yeah.
A lot of people can relate to a golf swing.
Right.
They don't play baseball.
Right.
I mean, right? So it's yeah.
Or even a good singer, today my voice feels tired. So normally because it's tired, this is what I'm going to have to do to get into that same. But it's like, I know.
Right.
I know what to do to be in that place that I need to be. And it's not like a good singer doesn't just happen by luck. A good baker doesn't just happen by luck. They've studied their process and they know what to do. Even what I like about this is now we won't. I guess that's what keeps coming out. I'm feeling good energy. I want people to feel like even when the good moment happens, I know how to seal the deal.
Yep. Seal the deal.
Yeah, coming up on success. I'm not trying to be a marketing person today, but coming up on success and vulnerability, October 29th or 24th, I forget what day it is. Anyway, I'm going to do the SV Live, which is 2 hours on when a stage 1 couple who still has a lot of work to do comes in a good place. Like, what do you do? So we're going to spend 2 hours talking about that.
Nice.
It can be disorienting, actually, especially when you know there's still a bunch of hard things that needs to be talked about. But I think this fits here just because we're not saying you don't need to go back to the pain at some point. But if they're having an anomaly, we need to figure out why. We need to help them see why. Like, it's not just avoidance.
Yeah.
Even if some of it is avoidance, what is it? What shows up? And how does that create, even if it's just 48 hours of a sense of connection, to fully track that?
That's right.
We get excited about new possibilities. So I certainly want to make room for your listeners that, like, hey, listen, if you're in a sweet spot and you don't want to challenge that, that's fine too. There are a lot of different ways to get into the same place, right? A lot of us can put too much pressure on ourselves and overthink and not want to break down every moment. And, if you find yourself artistic and super talented and good, and that's your space, this is not a critique to you. Everybody's got their own way of showing up and doing their thing. I know the three of us share, we're like kindred spirits where we have fun kind of challenging the process, seeing things we don't see. It helps us feel like we have more control over, what could happen. So again, whatever floats your boat, right, James?
That's right, G. And the whole heart, once again, in this podcast it's about helping us push our leading edge as therapists. Because I think our clients deserve that. Like, you want a surgeon who's really studied their process. It's just like, I'm not sure what I'll do, but I'll cut you open. We'll see what happens when we get in there. I mean, to some degree, for every surgeon, that's kind of true. Like in the best laid of plans, I am ready for what goes south, but I also know what to do if things are going well, and I'll do everything to get as much good as I possibly can done by doing this, and this. That's why I feel like you're challenging me is like not only to focus on when I get blocked or when I don't know how to do this or when myself as a therapist gets triggered. It's you're really pushing me to say, well, how do I get more good out of the good I'm already doing? How do I get more good out of what my clients are already doing? I can appreciate that.
Yeah, and while it's tempting to go do another surgery metaphor, I'm going to wave off of that one.
Back to sports or war.
I got plenty of those stories. But I think about development, and I think about self-the therapists here that are really important, right? So I've studied my process, I've developed, I've repeated trainings, I've facilitated core skills, I've watched Success and Vulnerability or EFT Cafe or whatever, so that my moves become second nature to me. So I learn them really well so I can forget them and let them come up through my attunement. And then self with a therapist, like, where are you connected? Is it at home in a relationship? Is it in your spiritual world? Is it some calling? Like, where are you getting your regulation? Because both of those need to hold hands for us to do this really well. Because what you're talking about is the ultimate expression of flexibility, which means it has to come from being secured on something where I can be that nimble.
Yeah.
I can go in with a general plan, and I need to, but then be able to turn on a dime and turn again and turn again and pivot and pivot and pivot. If my body is so focused on, making sure I'm secure, it's going to be awfully difficult to pivot. So I know that's kind of implied, but I think that's an important point.
Yeah, I remember watching Gail Palmer do a live session, and she was like stage 2. She had the client into, deep pain. And I was, you always think of this. I'd be like, I'd go to View of Self. It was right there. And she went for longing. She went to, you've always wanted to be seen. Nobody's known you in this place. And it was like amazing what the longings did to deepen his experience in that moment. I remember saying to myself, well, I would not have done that. I didn't even see that as an option in that moment. She pivoted and introduced something that I probably would not have introduced, right? I mean, that's how we learn new tools in our toolbox. So, that's what we're inviting our listeners to do. Like, surround yourself, expose yourself to different styles and different ways of doing things, and see all these possibilities to pivot in the session.
Yeah. And, I know we've done like different self of the therapist stuff on here about recognizing when you're out of attunement. And I think we've done this, but I want to encourage you as a practical exercise. How do you, as a therapist, recognize, man, my clients are open? Like, what is it that's telling you, like, they're still open and there's more room for me to work? How would you recognize that? And then how do you help them pivot into doing that maybe more deeper work or deepening that one? And how do you even recognize when you're in a flow state? Because sometimes for me, it's like, hey, I'm in a flow, we're staying. You're open, I'm in the flow, I'm not letting you take me out. I remember one time it was in New Orleans, George, and the client, like I had fought to get him clear, and he finally dropped in. He tried to introduce another topic, and I was like, and I caught myself, I was like, no. I mean, probably a great idea where you're going, but this is really important, and it took us a while to get here.
What's your tell?
For him?
No, for you.
My tells.
Yeah,
I do things like if I hear a change, like where they're in the beginning, they're talking really fast and anxious and depersonalized. If I hear them slow down, I'm like, hey, thank you so much. I just heard your voice slow down, which tells me we kind of hit the pocket. Can we stay? If I hear them switch out of, if I hear them kind of come, like they've been like, well, we and the world and society, but then I hear them like, I, me, that tells me something. Leanne Campbell helped me with this. If I see a tear show up in the room, I'm going to put words to that tear.
Yeah.
Your body activated for a reason. I need to go find that because that could take me to my next point. Even now, this is where it really feels like sometimes I might be in the middle of a tango move 1 and that tear shows up. I'm like, you know what? I don't care so much about that process anymore. I'm going for that tear.
Yeah.
And that be somewhere I might pivot.
I was in Arkansas doing a live and saw somebody pointed out my tell. Like when I get into that place of attunement, I usually lean in and I go, oh, like there's some sound that we all, like we watch our videotapes, we can tell when we hit this spot, when we're in attunement, and then we're about to kind of stretch their window of tolerance and introduce something new. We use more of ourselves. I mean, there's some great stuff when we watch our tapes.
Y'all, we got to cut this short, but let me go ahead. I will make the plug. We will be covering this again. It's going to be streamed through it's going to go through all of our keynote talks, our breakout sessions in some way at the SV Focus Lab here in Arkansas, September 11th through 13th.
Online.
That's right, Ryan. Say it again. Or
Online.
so that means it'll be a hybrid experience. We really want as many people from the EFT world to be able to experience this, to learn from it, and just to come enjoy a good time and some fun with each other, you all. Thank you so much for letting us push your leading edge so you can help your clients succeed on their leading edge so they can have success and vulnerability. Appreciate you.
Thank you for listening. We hope this experience helps you push the leading edge in your work to help people connect with themselves and with each other. Please subscribe to our podcast and leave us a 5-star review. You can contact us at pushtheleadingedge@gmail.com, and you can follow us on our Facebook page at Push the Leading Edge. You can follow Ryan on Facebook at Ryan Rana Professional Training and on his website, ryanranatraining.com. You can follow James on Facebook and Instagram at DocHawkLPC. You can also check out his website, DocHawkLPC.com.